hosting another one of our Pelotonia live events. We took last week off because we really wanted to give this one some launch time. We're super excited. Today's Pelotonia Live is in partnership with RTRX. You just got a little sneak preview of one of our co-hosts for today, Suraj Hinduja, who's one of our fearless leaders of RTRX, which, if you're not familiar, RTRX started back in 2012 and has raised over $5 million for cancer research through Pelotonia. They've been an incredible partner. And every year in the days leading up to Ride Weekend, they've gathered thousands of individuals to engage in programming that ignites curiosity and conversation around leadership and big ideas. And it was actually RTRX that introduced us to Golriz Lucina, who is our host today, or our guest today, rather. But our partnership with RTRX is super exciting because they're shifting their programming model a bit this year, like many of us are in the wake of COVID. So while they won't be gathering in person this year for their yearly experience in August, instead they're going to be focusing on bringing content that's inspiring and really cool programmatic opportunities to the community, which is a great transition into the launch of their Changemaker series, which we're really thrilled to be partnering on today. But to really shine the spotlight on our guest for today, Golriz Lucina, we are so thrilled to have her. She is the co-founder and head of creative at SoulPancake, which is an award-winning content studio that creates daily digital content that inspires with stories and experiences and really disrupts the status quo of content out there with pure joy. So she's going to talk a lot more about what that means and, you know, kind of how her and the brand's really distinct aesthetic has brought such a wide body of work into the world, some of which I know that many of you are familiar with. And at this point, they've amassed a community of 10 million fans and over 100 billion views worldwide of their content, which is really amazing. So today she's going to share with us a lot of different things. Number one being the triumph of the human spirit, celebrating moments of joy and the power of creating. So if you attended her talk last year at RTRX, I hope none of the other panelists are listening, but I hear it was the best out there in 2019. But it's a real treat that you're in store for today. Afterwards, Suraj, as well as our CEO, Doug, are going to come on the screen and do some Q&A with Golriz. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the questions tab at the bottom here under Ask a Question. But with that, I am going to bring Golriz up on stage here. Hi.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you for that incredibly flattering introduction, which is very undeserved. But welcome to my home office. So happy to be here with you guys. I had the best time with this community last year, and I'm really happy to be able to be here virtually with you today.
Well, we are super grateful. I'm going to let you take it away with your presentation and super excited to learn from you.
Awesome. Okay, let me see if the technological gods are with me today. I am going to share my screen. Here we go. Okay. So far, so good. Play the slideshow. Boom. Okay, so I hope that you guys can see this in full screen. And I guess if someone can't, they should call me because I can't see any other notifications on my desktop. So welcome. I know it's noon for some of you. It's morning here in California. But I just first wanted to acknowledge how grateful I am that you took the time to be here. I'm a mom of 3, and so I'm juggling my kids' virtual learning and trying to get everything organized. My computer was crashing, and I was just thinking how, even though in some regards it feels like we have more time, I also just feel like the clock is racing these days, and like each day goes by and I've like started all over again. And so I really want to acknowledge taking any time out to kind of restore your own spirit and learn something or hear from someone else is really an act of love. And so thank you for being here with me today. So the first place I want to start is the last picture I took at Trader Joe's. This was back in March, early March, and you know, COVID-19, the ramifications of this horrific global pandemic were hitting the US. and we were hearing stirrings of, what was ahead. And I went to the store because I wanted to get some stuff for my family. And I remember this moment. It was so surreal because the scenes looked like something I'd seen in a movie or read in a book. And I couldn't really believe it was real life, that, the shelves were empty. And it was almost, I remember being amused by what was left on the shelves. I'm like, oh, people really don't like kale chips. Okay. Or like they would rather starve than eat olives. All right. But at that time, I still had this like sense of humor about it. And I kind of just thought like, this must be just, a day, we're all going to go back to normal tomorrow. And as my shopping progressed and I saw more and more people around me, everyone with kind of a sense of anxiety and very valid concern, I started feeling that too. I started feeling like scared and anxious and confused. And I noticed around me the way people were operating, everyone was kind of in survival mode. And it's this very individualistic, like, let me take care of myself, let me take care of my family. And by the time I got to the checkout, then I started going through the stages of just feeling guilt that I could afford this full shopping cart of food when I know so many others maybe couldn't, take care of their families in that way. So the whole experience really left me very heavy. And when I got home that day, I was scrolling through Twitter, which is not an antidote for heaviness. And I saw this story of this woman who also, like me, went shopping and was in the car park, and she heard someone shouting at her from a parked car. And so she went over to the car, and it was an elderly couple who was sitting in their car and had been sitting there for over an hour waiting to get someone's attention, both of them too scared to go in and shop. And they really wanted someone who was maybe, in better health or less risk to go into the store and shop for them. So she took their cash and their shopping list, and she went and did this act of service for them. And reading this story just reframed everything that I was going through. And I suddenly was reminded of the work we do at SoulPancake and why Rainn Wilson, who you guys know as Dwight from The Office, so why Rainn and I and our co-founders started this company. And it was really to be of service to the world. We were not trying to just amass an audience or just create content just to be funny. We really wanted to create something of value that was additive to people's lives. And at the time, we felt like the internet was this sort of wastegate where there was a lot of content, but none of it really fueled you or reminded you of your nobility or showed humans at their best. It's always like train wreck content that we're often watching. Tiger King, which I've watched, and it's gripping and it's captivating, and there's a place for that too. And I guess maybe it takes our minds off our own realities. But what we were always setting out to do was remind people of their own inherent good and offerings and blueprints and designs, and that's this little story of this act of service that this woman did for these strangers. It just reminded me that human connection is the most important thing that we can take out, I think, of this whole experience, the importance of taking care of each other, and that each other going beyond what we might see as our immediate family and extending out to our next door neighbors and our communities and our countries and our world. So, I came up with this thesis that a little creativity can create a whole lot of connection. And that's because all around me, I started to see these incredible bursts of creativity, even amidst the limitations. So everyone was stuck at home, but it was incredible. I just saw this surge of action that was happening, whether it was teachers, doing, virtual Facebook Live so that they could teach a whole community of kids virtually, or yoga instructors putting up classes for free, or artists offering art for hospital walls to be plastered with. And I think that, what I realized was these acts of creativity were actually forging acts of connection. So, the first thing I want to say about that, because you might be thinking, well, I'm not creative, or, my work is as a filmmaker, a storyteller. I co-built this media brand, but I do believe that every single person is creative in their own way, whether that's creative in how you make your breakfast, whether that's creative in how you grow your garden, or how you host events. there's just so many avenues for creativity. And I just think being a human means you're also creative. I just think the two go together. And so what I want to kind of blow apart is this myth that offering something creative has to be this like fully produced masterpiece of a video. It absolutely doesn't, and we saw that time and time again, that simple can be significant. So I'm going to share a video that I'm sure all of you saw. It went viral. But every time I watch this, I get kind of a lump in my throat because it's just so simple what the offering was, and then the net effect of how this created a ripple effect of joy and inspiration. Around the world, I think is so remarkable for such a small act of creativity. So I'm sure you can all agree, I'm not sure how the quality was, but even with the dog barking and the voices blending together, it's so emotional. And I kept thinking, would this have ever happened on another ordinary day when people were not in lockdown or not faced with this pandemic? I think that what the crisis also does was it allows us to be more vulnerable with each other, because what is there to lose? Like, we want to reach out, we want to show solidarity. And so in a way, it's broken down, I think, some of our barriers. And I just think about this man starting to sing opera from his balcony, and what a gift that was, not just to his little community, but then to the world. Like, we all saw this and watched it and felt inspired by this act. And now that had a ripple effect. Like, I know in New York City, and it happens here in Oakland too, at 7 o'clock, everyone comes out and starts banging on drums and pots and pans in recognition of our nurses and doctors. So this is just a tiny little act of creativity that kind of burst all over the world and created a ripple effect of other people figuring out within their own limited environments what they could do to offer a little bit of inspiration. So great things never come from comfort zones. I think that, one of the things we had to figure out at SoulPancake, because we're used to creating content, but we're used to doing it with a crew that goes to a set that has all of the people together and all, being able to coordinate all the moving pieces to make something, high quality, high production value quality. And so for us, we had to sit back and say, okay, if we want to still offer content at this time, how are we going to do it within the limitations? And it's just incredible how scrappy and resourceful people get. And I think that that's another myth, that with creativity, you need unbridled freedom, but actually the constraints, I think, allow you to be even more creative and inventive. And I just want to show you some of my favorite creative examples that I saw come out of this time. So we have the really creative work from home situations. I particularly love the one that's like a little bit of a flex, where they're sitting on top of rolls of paper towels or toilet rolls. And then you have the ironing board. But I just thought it was really fun to see people share their sudden work from home environments. I mean, this still is a really challenging time, but these kinds of offerings, I think, just brought a little bit of levity. And, seeing someone else working on an ironing board while you're perched on top of the washing machine just makes you feel like you're in solidarity with others who are facing similar challenges. I thought this was a really fun idea. The neighbors organized a social distancing dinosaur parade. So bringing so much joy to families that are in the lockdown by dressing up in these inflatable dinosaur costumes and, having a parade together. This was a activation by the Getty, where they encouraged people to take everyday objects and recreate a masterpiece. And I mean, it's just so brilliant, like with the bananas and the apple. And then this one is my favorite, because a pile of dirty laundry turned into this beautiful painting of a horse, which I'm sure has a classic name that I don't know. And the Trader Joe's bags, it's just like, it's such a wonderful example of someone using the resources they have, having fun with it, and recreating this piece of art. And then, let's see. Oh, there was the guys playing table tennis out of their balconies. I'm not sure if you saw this, but this was also pretty remarkable. And so that one actually also makes me nervous because there's no way I could keep a volley up for more than one of those. But I loved how inventive, and I also love that they shared it. They could have had that moment and it could have been fun for the two of them, but in sharing it, we were all able to enjoy it too. And I showed my kids and they were spellbound by this idea. And then this is actually really one of the top for me. I hope you guys can see what's happening here, but. All right, so that's just brilliant. If there was going to be sort of a quarantine award, that deserves it. And this is everyday people. They're not necessarily filmmakers or storytellers or artists. They're just everyday people finding ways to be creative, connect with one another, and then offer that to the world as another point of connection. So this idea that when things change inside you, things change around you. So after, my pretty sordid Trader Joe's experience and coming home and feeling pretty demotivated, frankly, and apathetic, and also the sense of like, what could I contribute? I'm not a first responder. I'm not on the front line. It can be easy, I think, to also underestimate what you have to offer at a time like this. And this idea of when things change inside you, things change around you was something I've been sitting with, because I've noticed that I've had to even examine my life and the areas where I was too busy or moving too fast to make time for moments of human connection. And I would think that more people now than ever are talking to their neighbors, while being physically separated and maintaining the 6 feet, still having those conversations, making eye contact, thanking their, the delivery people that come to their homes, thanking the postal workers. I just noticed that people are being more grateful. They're being grateful out loud, and they're finding those points of connection. So when I came back to SoulPancake, I mentioned the co-founder is Rainn Wilson, and he called us up and he said, I want to do something. I want to offer something right now. I have the time and I want to be of service. And so there was two things. We started a daily show on Instagram called Hey There Human, which you can watch today. And I'm actually guest hosting, which is going to disappoint all the Rainn Wilson fans. But Rainn's taking a week off because he did 6 weeks, I believe, of back-to-back shows. But every day at noon, we gather there virtually, and then we interview a random human in the world, anywhere in the globe, and ask them how they're doing and dig into topics like mental health and just finding out how they're traversing this challenging time. So that was one offering that our company quickly pulled together. A lot of teammates are working on this and on bringing something that can be a little speck of hope every day. And then the other thing we did was we invited a few people. They thought that they were doing an interview with SoulPancake about, loneliness and how hard and challenging this time is. And then we had pre-selected them, so we knew they were huge Rainn Wilson fans, and we had Rainn surprise them on the Zoom call. So I'm going to show a little bit of that video also. I'm not going to show the whole thing because I'm worried about the quality you guys are seeing, but I'll just show you up until the surprise because it's a very sweet moment.
We as human beings, we crave for connection.
It's been a really harsh adjustment.
Being ripped apart from my norm.
You can ask someone who likes solitude, is definitely a different beast than what I'm used to. So
my mom actually was sick. She tested positive for COVID, and not being able to see her, give her a big hug has been kind of crappy lately.
Oh.
Hey, Amala, how you doing? Hi, how's it going? Hey, Carol.
I just realized that the video was not moving, but okay, well, let me see. Sorry guys, that one's not gonna work. Okay, so you can watch it on YouTube, but it's a really sweet moment. And as you can imagine, you know, getting surprised by your favorite celebrity, everyone kind of starts tearing up. But then they also have this really beautiful conversation with Rainn about what they've been going through and about how hard it's been. And the one through line that keeps coming out is the sense of loneliness. And I love this line that comes through that says, instead of calling it social distancing, we should just be calling it physical distancing. Because socially, we do need to feel more connected than ever before, while physically we're apart. And that really stayed with me, this idea of how can we every day cultivate physical distancing, but keep our social connections intact. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things we did within our company to ensure that our company culture and that sense of like proximity between us, even though it was not physical, was still being manifested. But one thing I wanted to mention about this video is not only like, was it so sweet to see the people rewarded and smiling and happy by this moment with Rainn, but what I noticed was the change in the tenor of my team. So I have a small production team within SoulPancake that worked on this video. And I think everyone was feeling stretched. Everyone's bandwidths were fried. Everyone's under a lot of pressure. And there was a sense of our morale sort of slowly ebbing away. And I could feel it. I could feel it on Zoom calls. I was challenged. Everyone was feeling really exhausted and overwhelmed. And what I noticed is the second we came up with this idea of an offering, of a way to be of service, and then started working on it, everything changed. Everyone's moods changed. There was a sense of like invigoration, empowerment, coming together, solidarity that started taking over the team. And that was really interesting to me, this idea that when we feel useful, that when we feel like we can bring some value, it changes our own paradigm. And I was really reminded that when you are able to find a little way to give, that can light you up and it can help sort of push away the darkness. And I really think that if you don't take anything else away from this conversation, I would love to just for you to consider one small offering, like what's a little way that you can give, especially in the times when you're feeling the heaviest and when things that feel really crushing. Like what is one tiny act of kindness or one simple thing that you can do for someone else? Because I did notice such a huge change in the team energy when we were working on this project. And the reward was there too. We ended up being included in this global citizen broadcast that was on air a couple of weekends ago, and it ended up reaching 250 million households. So this thing that was just a seed of an idea on Tuesday, a week later gets to be broadcast to 250 million people across the world. And so you don't ever know where that like little gift could go. And just like that guy singing opera in Italy, I don't think he would ever imagine that he would be a viral hit. But that wasn't why he was doing it. And so many examples of people problem solving and offering something of themselves, whether it's our incredible teachers, this is a grainy photograph, but this teacher that stood outside of his student's window with a whiteboard and was kind of breaking down a math problem for her. Like it just is so sweet to me. And then we saw, and you're probably still seeing these influxes of rainbows and teddy bears up in windows, so that children who are in lockdown, when they go on walks with their parents, can have like a teddy bear scavenger hunt, or just noticing all of the different handmade rainbows. This young student in Oregon who created a mask that could be used for doctors and nurses whose patients might be hearing impaired. Like just the fact that he realized this was going to be a problem and then created something to solve for it, a young teenager. And I've been watching, even in my area, the little free libraries that we have sometimes on the ends of street corners have now been turned into little pantries that have essentials and cans of food and things like that for people that might have food scarcity. So just these tiny little offerings to help are so, so deeply inspiring. And it leads to this idea that The idea of living for a cause and not just the applause. And this, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, the whole Pelotonia audience and RTRX community, this is already deeply rooted in the DNA of who you are. So I don't need to hammer this home too much, but I think that, you know, at the end of the day, I do get some questions from film students or agencies that are like, how do we go viral? And if that is your end goal, I mean, yeah, maybe there's a way to get there. I just don't believe that that's the best end goal. I think that if you can go viral because you did something creative born out of you, where you really fulfilled on your design and purpose, that's amazing. Like, that's what I'm excited about. But for the end goal to be being famous or having many people know your name, I think that's just a shortcut. I don't think that's really, like, at the end of the day, going to be fulfilling. And so the final case study that I wanted to show you was something we worked on with my parent company, which is Participant, and the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Around the time of Corona, of course, so many of our housekeepers and nannies and domestic workers are out of work because they're not going to their families' homes, but they're struggling, whether it's because the family's been also laid off, so they're struggling financially, or the domestic workers now have no reliable source of income. And so we saw this issue and we teamed up with the NDWA to create a piece of content. And it was funny because the day we decided to do this, I saw this post on Nextdoor that someone was bringing this very issue up about the most vulnerable among us and how are we going to take care of them. So it's amazing, like, where you can also get your sources of what the issues are. I think that, you know, just paying a little bit of attention, like every day we're seeing so many areas and systems that are broken and so many things that we need to pay attention to better in this country. And I think what we were able to do was, instead of getting overwhelmed by all of them, is pick one and decide we were going to do something about this. So we created a little social campaign designed using storytelling to get people to recognize, you know, that this issue is out there and that they can do something about it. I'm going to try and play a little bit of it. Again, if it doesn't work, apologies, and I'll send the links out in a minute. Let's see. So if it was too grainy, the final tagline said, "Care for the people who care for you." And the messaging was all done through text. And that was our inventive way of solving for the fact that we couldn't go out and shoot, you know, a creative that required people in front of camera. So we used the texting back and forth and even the deleted text to kind of build up the emotion. And this piece ended up getting shared widely and, you know, creating that impact that we wanted to create, just raising awareness and then also giving people an action that they could take. So finally, you know, this graphic of crossing out yesterday, crossing out tomorrow, and just thinking about the now, you know, I think that I just learned well, there's a couple of things. So one, I want to just mention before I wrap up what we did internally, because what you're seeing is a lot of the kind of forward-facing content that our company created and our vision for how we could be of service during this time. But we also needed to take care of our community, the SoulPancake community, the participant community. And within our company, we have this incredible team called the Joy Brigade. And we started this because we wanted to keep our company culture intact and we wanted to prioritize it. Because we know we have something really special. We have really special humans that work at SoulPancake, but we also want to make sure that their spirits feel uplifted and that we're taking care of each other. So the Joy Brigade does really fun activities and had to kind of reframe how it did things during this time as well, now that we're all working from home. And these can be little ideas that maybe you take back to your workplaces, but a simple one was just even how we handled Zoom calls. As you know, everyone's got the Zoom fatigue, and it's draining to be on yet another conference call. But when we did our all hands, we decided once a week to theme them. So what you're seeing here is the space theme, and this is me wearing my kid's tiny space helmet that was like really hard to breathe. and then I had to give like an impassioned speech, and I forgot I was wearing it, so that was fun. But we theme our Zoom calls each week. I think we have Disney coming up on Friday, and it's just a fun little way for our team to do something creative, but it brings us all together and adds a little bit of levity. The other thing we started was a Coro Nice channel. So instead of Corona channel, a Coro Nice channel, where we only were allowed to share things that were inspiring. So none of the bad news, none of the scary statistics, none of the divisiveness, only activities and points of inspiration, similar to what you just saw in my presentation. That's where I got a lot of this content. So whenever anyone saw something that just kind of made their heart feel better, that's the Slack channel where we share that amongst each other. And that's been incredibly inspiring for everyone. And then, you know, finally, I just wanted to say that I recently learned that the Greek root for the word crisis actually means to sift. And it's such an incredible metaphor, I think, to think about the sifting process and what that does, which is basically removing all the excess, all the superficial, all the dross, all the stuff that is kind of like weighs us down, and leaving only the essential. And so if we think about this crisis as a sifting process of sorts, it really is a rare opportunity for us to sift through our own lives, our communities, our connections, and think about what is the most essential here. What's the most essential for me? What's the most essential for my family, for my environment, for my workplace? And for me, it just comes down time and time again to our shared humanity and to our human connection. And so if you can give a little bit of your time today to cultivating human connection, it can be within your family. I mean, you know, even though I'm home with my kids all day, how much eye contact am I really making with them? How much time am I giving to their wild ideas? The other day, they wanted to create a giant ship made out of cans that they floated in the bathtub. And I really wanted to say, that's gonna make a mess. That's gonna be a disaster for me to clean up. But they were so excited about it. And I just decided to join in their enthusiasm. And it made such a difference to everything. And so I think, you know, coming to the people that you work with that spirit of joy and connection, before you ask them about their to-do list, asking them how they're really doing and trying to connect with where their hearts are at can make such a world of difference. So anyway, that's when I sifted through it all, what mattered to me was human connection, and that's it. Let me escape out of this.
Awesome. Golriz, can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome, thank you.
I spent the whole time sweating that you guys could not hear me though. It's so weird not to have any feedback loop and just be speaking to a keynote presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, I had to like reconfigure my entire kitchen in my little like 900 square foot apartment. Thankfully, my roommate's not here right now to make it seem like a professional setting versus everyone seeing my living room and all the mess that is here right now. So thank you for that. That was really uplifting. It's a sunny day here in Columbus, and that only added to the the light I think that everyone has been seeking and looking for.
Awesome.
So we've got a couple questions that I want to run through.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Let me get with the audience questions, and then I'll get to some of the questions that I have for you. I
like this question from Gabby about what it's like working with Rainn Wilson.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do that one. So I don't know if a lot of people knew that SoulPancake was founded by Dwight, aka Rainn, aka Dwight. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and that relationship and what that's like?
Totally. So it's amazing. It's amazing because here's why I think that Rainn Wilson is the best thing that ever happened to SoulPancake. Not only did he have the idea, which we'll give him that, and this was when he was kind of, the Office was like on TV and everyone knew Rainn Wilson, and he just wanted to do something good with his fame. He came so him and my husband, Devin, actually are good friends. And so that's my sort of connection to all of it. When I met Devin and we started dating, he's like, I'm working on this project called SoulPancake with Rainn Wilson. And I grew up in New Zealand and my family's in Australia. I didn't know Rainn Wilson. The word SoulPancake was weird. I could not understand how this was ever going to pay a mortgage or, provide benefits for us. So I remember at the time being like, this sounds very weird and with no path to revenue. But the more I got embedded in the project they were working on, the more I knew I had to be a part of it. It was like all the things I loved in the world coming together. And the cool thing about Rainn is he's just so unfiltered and so deeply himself. And I think it gives everyone else permission to be themselves too. Like he is, to me, the quintessential kind of misfit in many regards. And he'll say that himself, like that he was an awkward teenager and he never quite fit in and he didn't really know his place in the world. But I think we all feel like that, and it's easy to put on lots of masks and pretend we are not. But he's just so vulnerable, and he has this heart of gold. And the thing about Rainn is he does care so deeply about the world. He's such a deep thinker. He's so compassionate. But when you hold him up against Dwight, it's like, oh, he's just like a weirdo. Right. Yeah, he is a weirdo. And like he constantly like sends me texts that have me laughing because he's like, so even today he wanted me to like give notes on a cut. And I told him like, hey Rainn, I've got like important commitments this morning. I can't do it. And he literally sent down the thumbs down emoji. Like normally someone would be like, okay, cool. Whenever you can get to it. Not really. Right. And so I love that. Like he has such a wicked sense of humor, but he has this incredible heart and incredible like compassion and care for humanity. He really believes like humanity is in the stage of evolution. And the fact that you can have kind of a spokesperson who can talk about God and spirituality and our design and our purpose and service. He talks about prayer and meditation, but do it with the face of Rainn Wilson, it breaks down a lot of barriers. And I think it prevents our content from feeling preachy and kind of holier than thou. And it makes it really accessible for people. So I love Rainn so much. And yeah, watch Hey There Human on SoulPancake's Instagram every day at noon, and you'll get a little bit more of a taste of his personality and the duality between like, he can be just so hilarious, but he also can be so deep. And I think we all can, but do we show, both sides of ourselves is the question. Yeah,
last night in prep for our conversation today was watching his interview on spirituality. Mm-hmm. And like in my mind, like watching Dwight talk about spirituality and like his pathway for that, I had to like remind myself that he's not Dwight. He's like he's a normal human being, just like the rest of us. Yeah. He just happens to be, this guy on this TV show who's completely, out of this world. And so it's probably pretty amazing to be able to work with him every single day. We've got another question here from Molly about, some of your favorite ways to get inspired. So you are, at the helm of the creative side of SoulPancake, and you're probably seeing and doing all these things, but then at some point you've got to like make a decision, right, as to what SoulPancake produces. So can you kind of talk us through being inspired? And I think we all get inspired from different ways, regardless of our professions, but then how that translates into what you're creating.
Sure. Okay. So the funnel for inspiration for me is huge. There is really no singular point of like, I get my inspiration just from here. I will say in a world where we have a lot of conversations about our devices, it's like, it's a love-hate relationship for me. I both am tethered to it, and my kids, it was really uncomfortable. They once drew a family portrait, and then my son is like, oh no, I forgot to put dad's phone in his hand. Oh, wow. And it was an awakening moment to like look at my husband and be like, oh, okay, the phone made it into the family portrait. So I can absolutely recognize how easy it can be to just have this like form of distraction that's constantly taking our headspace, and also can be very, take you down a rabbit hole that leaves you feeling really empty by the end of it. But I really have sort of curated my device to serve up for me a lot of joy, a lot of inspiration. I also, you know, growing up in New Zealand, maybe this is testament to that, or the fact that I have very hippie parents who love nature and like would drag me to garden centers every Saturday for fun to look at roses. But I get so inspired by the world around us. And I've been making a point recently to go on walks and just notice, like pay deeper attention. And so there's tons of inspiration that comes, I think, from nature and big expansive skies and just looking at a tree and realizing like, oh, this tree was here before me, is gonna be here after me. What is that? It just kind of grounds you again. I think when it comes to your question of how do we decide what we're going to put our resources into, like you have to be judicious. We can't do everything.
Right.
And so we have to really go back to our mission. And to me, like, you know, with SoulPancake, it's always to elevate the human experience, to elevate conversations about what it means to be a human. So there's a lot of things we could be doing and a lot of causes that we could be championing, but I kind of use this as a compass point. Does this help? Will this help create more human connection? Sure. And some content just frankly is not meant to do that. It's meant to get you enraged. It's meant to like get you like clamoring or protesting or dividing. And I really think that if the content we make at SoulPancake, it's supposed to galvanize people, to unite people, and to see our shared humanity. So I kind of use that as like, does this do that? Does this advance that mission? And hold it up against that.
Sure. So talking about that, and you talked a little bit about this, about what SoulPancake is doing inside the company, right? Like so much of SoulPancake is the content that you all produce for all of us that we're all very grateful for. I think I watch the Kid President video at least every other week just to give myself my own pep talk. And it came out when I was an undergrad and like didn't know what to do with my life and like thought I wanted to go into business or go be a teacher or go save the world, and like having this like what at that time 7-year-old I think like just like shake me. But what about like, you know, you talked about it with the Joy Brigade and the Corona Nice, like companies that are like, what can, because we have a lot of folks who are on right now and in both the Pelotonia and RTRX audiences who are leaders in their companies. Right. And like companies have never faced this, right? Like we are, in addition to, you know, how to work from home and how do you operate your business from home and everyone is decentralized. What can you advise or what have you seen work for companies just to uplift the morale and provide opportunities for that same level of human connection that like, my coworker is no longer next to me, or I can't go walk to lunch with a couple of my friends in the suite next door. So how do we balance all of that?
Yeah, we're navigating the same thing. I think that a big part of it is going back to the joy. Like, how can you infuse joy in that day to day? Is it like theming your Zoom calls? Is it, one of the things we did was an impromptu like disco dance party where we got the team together, they didn't know why, and I funneled disco music and we all just like got up off our chairs and danced together. We also had to face the unexpected shocking loss of a colleague due to this horrible pandemic. And I think that we could have sent out an email to everyone like, you know, just expressing our sorrow and our condolences, but myself and my co-head decided to at least gather our division together, and we did a Zoom call, and literally we just sat, and it was awkward and painful and somber, and in the beginning, like everyone was just kind of looking at the screen just in shock. And then people started opening up and sharing stories about this incredible man and sharing their first impressions and how he uplifted their day. And there was tears and there was laughter, and it was it was still a coming together the best we could. But I think we had to be brave enough to create a space, you know, and one of my colleagues said this, like there was a moment where we were all really quiet and someone was like, this is kind of uncomfortable. And my colleague was like, I'm just grateful to just sit with you guys for a moment. And so I think that takes some courage, right, to create those spaces. I think the other big superpower, and I talked about this last year, so I didn't hammer it this much today, but is gratitude. He's finding these acts of gratitude. Participant, my parent company, and the CEO, David Lindy, does this cool thing on Wednesdays called the Weekly DL, where the whole company gathers. That's like over 130 of us. And at the end, we have a pie day. So the staff nominates someone who's deserving of a pie for some incredible work they've done or some way they've showed enough. And so every Wednesday you can look forward to someone on the team being spotlighted and talked about and pumped up, and then they're awarded a pie that David's own son like hand delivers to them.
Oh, wow.
So things like that, you know. One thing we did for our team, the Joy Brigade actually instigated this, was seeing how many of the local restaurants were suffering. They were able to give everyone on the team $50 gift certificates for their favorite local restaurant. So that way it not only was like an offering to the community, but it also made our team feel great, felt like they could do something that was more active and more, you know, contributed to the community. So I think when you can really deeply go into gratitude, acts of generosity, that can also bring a team together in a time like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a question that popped up while we were talking about it from Miriam, and she says, so what are ways that you and the SoulPancake staff are able to draw clear boundaries between work and personal time during this time?
Yeah, well, first of all, what were clear boundaries for me beforehand, like that, you know, the whole sifting thing, it's really brought that sharply into focus. Like, how was I, you know, carving out? It's hard for me too, because SoulPancake was kind of my first child. So this is a startup that we've co-founded and built and grew. So I'm not the best at setting boundaries, but during this time, what we have noticed with our team, and I think this is why this question is so valuable, is that we're always on now. And the expectation is, okay, well, they're just home. Why aren't they responding to emails? Why aren't they picking up the call? Why are they not able to be at that meeting? There's this sense of like immediacy that we expect now from our colleagues, that before you'd be like, oh yeah, she took a lunch, or oh, she's not getting into the office today because she has a doctor's appointment. And now we're just like constantly wired in. And so I think it can be easy at even, you know, I manage a team to start anticipating that everyone's just online and everyone should be accessible. So what we started doing as leadership is like mandating breaks and saying like, this is human time. Like from 12 to 1 is lunch hour. Like go and take a lunch. It does not serve you to like skip over lunch because you're trying to get stuff done. Like it is important to me that my team rests and that they sleep. And I think that we have such like empathetic leadership that, you know, if you need to say like, I'm just having a rough day today and I just need a couple of hours to like get my head together, you know, that your team should feel able to kind of, you know, vocalize that, what their needs are right now, especially around their mental health. But I think that if you as a leader can also show that your boundaries, that sets the example. So I've been really careful, I will say, back in the day when we first started this company, myself and Devin and Shabnam and Rainn, we would send emails to each other in the middle of the night. We were just like working around the clock. But once I got a team in place, it wasn't fair to do that anymore. It wasn't fair to them because if they get an email from me on a Saturday, they feel like, well, she's working, she's gonna expect me to work. So if you're boundaried, I think that sets it gives permission for the rest of your team to also set the right boundaries in place too.
Awesome. I agree with that 100%. And think about too of like, even like when I was an undergrad, right? And my friend group and I sadly would go through this competition almost of like, who could sleep the least. And it was like this weird thing of being overproductive and thinking that this was, you know, this was cool when in reality it wasn't, because we were exhausted, you know, 2 months into the academic year.
Yeah, it's not, honestly, if you're depleted, I mean, and you hit burnout, which I've done a few times in my life, like you're not able to do anything for anybody. And so I think there are times where I lean on my team and I'm like, we've got to hustle. We have this deadline. We got to show up. But then that means that it has to be the counterbalance to that, where the next week it's like, okay, you get a bit of flex time, or, you know, I understand if you need to take half days. So I think just making sure that you can find a rhythm. And right now it is pressing. I saw this article that was saying we shouldn't just treat it like work from home, because it's work from home under the umbrella, the shadow of a global pandemic. It's entirely different from normal work from home. So, and we don't know, we don't have a manual for it. We've never experienced it before. So giving ourselves some gentleness and forgiveness around this too, knowing that we're all navigating different anxieties and fears. I think it's a really important time to sort of extend, maybe just giving people the benefit of the doubt. You know, that if they're not able to show up in the way that you expected of them, like they're dealing with a lot right now.
Awesome. So the last question I've got from our audience is from Michael, and he says that our company works in hotel management. What message do you think guests are missing and would appreciate right now?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I think that everyone everyone wants to feel as safe and secure and held as possible. You know, if I was a guest at a hotel right now, I think it would be so important for me to feel like my concerns were being taken seriously, that my health was being taken seriously. I'm sure, I know this is happening. Like there's all kinds of, you know, things that are going into place to make sure that the safety guardrails are there. But beyond just the logistics of it all, I think it's that human care. It's that checking in with your guests and just like asking them how they're doing and how they're navigating, and maybe going a little bit beyond just the like, are you comfortable? And just like, you know, human being to human being, like I see you and I'm figuring it out too and I'm doing my best, and just taking a moment to connect. Like, do they have a birthday coming up? Are they concerned about their mom? Like finding out something about them that can maybe remind you of our shared humanity, I think can make such a difference.
Awesome. Hello, Jill.
Hi, Fran. I'm joining you back again. I just have to say, Golriz, thank you. Suraj, thank you. This has been fantastic. Everybody who asked a question today and all the information that was shared, I truly feel like we put some joy and goodness and really actionable insights out into the world. So Golriz, thank you so much for being a part of this. We really can't thank you enough.
Oh, you're so welcome. This was, I'm so glad to be a part of it. I wish I could see like the actual audience too, but I'm so happy to be a part of it. I hope it was somewhat helpful, if nothing else, a little bit of joy and inspiration. Yeah, start a Coro Nice channel, you know, even a text thread with your friends and family, and share some of the joyful, good things coming out of this time, because there really just is such an abundance of people being so creative and so inspiring.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to get you back to Columbus one of these days so you can see all the faces that joined us here today. But we will say goodbye to you guys for now, and thank you so much. And of course, for everybody watching, visit the SoulPancake YouTube channel here at the bottom. We'll continue to share some of that great content that you were messaging out. So have an awesome day.
Thank you. Thanks, Suraj.
Thank you, Golriz. Bye.
Thank you both so much. The last thing I'll leave you with is I hope today gave you something, a bright spot in your day. I certainly know it did for me and our whole team here at Pelotonia. I'm going to share one little piece of joy that's on my mind right now. So if you have participated in Pelotonia, you certainly know about Homage. They partner with us every year to produce a really terrific t-shirt for all of our participants. They have a really, really special opportunity for anybody who wants to buy a t-shirt, eat some pizza, and support cancer research, specifically the $1 million pledge that we have to supporting a COVID and cancer research fund. So if you click that link on the right hand of your screen, you'll be able to learn more. Again, it's bringing me some joy today, so I hope you'll check it out too. Thank you for joining us. This recording will be available afterwards on the Crowdcast page here, on our YouTube page, and on Pelotonia's Facebook. So thanks again to RTRX. Thanks to everybody for being here. We hope you'll share this with friends, and have a great day.